Are we good?
Good to go.
Okay, thank you. May I have your name, please, and your address?
Okay, my name is Debbie Verga. I live at 2 Bluegrass Lane, Comac, New York, 11725.
Spell your last name.
V as in Victor, I-R-G-A.
All right, raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm here as the community relation consultant for the Comac School District, and I just wanted it to be noted that we are supportive of the Town Line Association, and we do not support the variance that is being applied for. As a community resident, I wear another hat, and I am also a member of the Comac Civic Association, or Community Association. We had done one of the things I think that we're missing is the footprints of our community. And one of the things I heard you speak about when we first came here is how does these things affect our communities. And this has a great effect on our community too. One of the things that people are not looking at is we did a survey about a year ago. There are over 4,000 18-wheelers that go up and down Town Line Road on a daily basis. It is not what it is 100 years ago, and I heard Mr. Schumacher say a few times, 100 years ago we had this, and 50 years ago we had this. Well, the footprints of our neighborhoods have changed greatly over those years. The other thing that we have to be concerned with is we have 2 schools not far from that area, a high school and 1 block away an intermediate school. We have over 3,000 children that go to those 2 schools, just those 2 schools. Buses are going up and down Town Line Road all day long for field trips, dropping them off early in the morning, picking them up in the afternoon. One school goes in later, another school goes in later. We do not need, and we have been working very closely with the Smithtown and the Huntington Town boards to restrict the traffic of trucks on Town Line Road. Until this issue is resolved, I cannot see how this planning board can, in their right mind, continue to put more 18-wheelers to go up and down Town Line Road, as Mr. Schumacher said, 4 to 5 times a day, picking up containers, dropping off containers. It is a danger. No one here has once said, what about the community? What about the residents? What about the children? And it is so important that I do not want to see anybody's face when one of those trucks hit into a school bus. And we need to look at the footprints of our communities today, not 100 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Come up, please. We have 7 more cases, so please. Okay.
You need to swear me in.
Well, I need your name and address first.
Okay. Erwin B. Zimmerman, 288 Meadow Road in Kings Park, New York. Also a property owner on Meadow Glen Road, south of the railroad, next to Carlson.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, excuse me.
Yep.
Calm down. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, just to touch on a couple of things really quick. I've heard a lot of numbers kicked around here, and I think it may be advisable for this board to go over to planning, pull the old zoning manuals. You will find that actually the initial zoning of the land was Resolution 139. It was dated March 22nd of 1955. Petitioner was Leo Pivnik. What he did was he requested a G light industry classification. It ran from the Lilco right-of-way on Town Line Road up to the corner of Old Northport and Town Line Road. It then zagged across to where the Carlson repair building used to be. That zoning was in effect as per July 1955 update. Now, the interesting thing is that even in those days, special exceptions were required. You could have either had a warehouse, you could have had a sand pit or quarry, you could have had a non-nuisance repair service plant or a gasoline filling station. Now, you're all aware that the portion of Bread and Cheese Hollow Road north of Pulaski is really in a hollow. Well, at this point, and I know because I used to go over there in 1947, and The east side of Town Line Road was similar to the east side of Bread and Cheese Hollow north of Pulaski. Now, I did take the trouble to go to planning. I did read through some of the old zoning requirements. Now, one of the things that they pointed out under section 1202 was that they apparently did allow open outside storage. However, they also had the caveat with it that said it shall be adequately screened by appropriate planting or fencing so that the materials stored will not be visible from beyond the limits to the property. Now, I've looked at the property. I'm familiar with the property. If you really had to do that, there's not going to be that much of the property left. The heights, and they said building structure, I don't know as you deliberate to see what category you might even fit a container into, if that would be considered a structure, if it's not licensed, if it's not commercial, if it only goes and gets placed on a trailer. I don't know. This is something you'll have to wrestle with. I then went and tried to get some cost benefits. I stopped by, I spoke to Mr. Johnson, the assessor, and again, unfortunately, industrial property, much like other vacant property, because there's no building on it that he can readily assess, gets assessed at pretty much around $1,000 plus or leave a few per acre. The next thing was the traffic limitations. And I'm going to go and say that even if that 8 vehicle a day that I've heard goes to 16, as I remember it, the initial reason for widening and straightening Indian Head Road was that commercial traffic would come down Jericho, come up Indian Head, and in the days that I'm more familiar with, if it made a right, it would go to Lawrence Road. If it made a left, it would go to this area. And I'm going to ask you if you would address that to Mr. Tramarko or to Mr. Ryan to see if they're going to follow that path, because that may be the thing that will alleviate one of your problems, which is where's traffic going to go? Economics, yep, I also sounded out and found that about 50% of the employees presently live in Smithtown, which means they shop in Smithtown, and they pay property taxes in Smithtown. Lo and behold, they might make up in their property taxes some of what Mr. Cox would not be paying on the land. Lastly, I also was made aware that thousands of gallons of fuel are purchased in Smithtown. So if you get a industry, and let's call this an industry, which is partially what it is, and it moves away, you may be dislocating some jobs. You're probably dislocating some other economic benefits. Now, where do I stand in all of this? I'll probably be in front of you on other applications. You have presented a problem along the old Northport Road, Town Line Road area. And yes, for whatever reason, the town built the problem, and I think I would agree with everyone that the town has to resolve the problem. Now, there's going to be one or two ways of resolving it. Either we're going to get everybody together, and the hearings that I've been before, and maybe Mr. Flynn can testify to that, I've often said that the property owners, the civics, and the town somehow have to get together and come up with a plausible solution to the area. I myself was on a committee with Dave Flynn and Greg Zernicke, 1998 was it, Dave? And we came in with recommendations. I've read studies that previous planners have made. They're sitting gathering dust on a shelf. I think that if we want to go on, could this be precedent setting? Yes. But I would also urge the board, as you consider this, make it a valuable precedent setting thing. If you see that it will not pass muster, at least come up with the resolution that corrective action can be taken, that, maybe there can be reapplication at that point. I don't know. It's a bureaucratic problem. It's taken almost 60-some years to get here. And, speaking to some of the civics, they've pretty much decided that 2014 is a year that we really need resolution. I intend to do my part. So I do thank you.
Thank you.
You have a good day.
Thank you so much. All right, next, please.
Hi.
Hi.
Sean Lehman, 27 Columbine Lane, Kings Park.
All right. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Spell your last name.
Leahmann. Madam Chairwoman and members of the Town Board of the Zoning Board of Appeals, my name is Sean Lehman. I am here tonight representing the Kings Park Civic Association. With regards to the DWC Management KVC Holding LLC application before you this evening, the Kings Park Civic Association stands in opposition to the special exception for a trucking station, the use variance for outdoor storage in a light industrial zone, and the accompanying 11 variance requests. I jotted some things down while Mr. Tramarko was talking, so just bear with me. I will be quick.
Good.
First, a special exception for a trucking station, if approved, would negatively impact an area that is already stressed from the many large vehicles that use Old Northport Road, Town Line Road, and the connecting roadways. If, as Mr. Tramarko has stated, a trucking station is allowed in a light industrial zone, why are we here looking for a special exception? Next, the use variance for outdoor storage in a light industrial zone, if approved, could set a precedent that will negatively impact the area and could redefine the light industrial zone category. It does not matter if another property owner in the area is utilizing outdoor storage at this point. It is still illegal. Let's make no mistake about this application. The primary use is for storage. In addition, the variance to increase the maximum height for outdoor storage from 6 feet to 24 feet is unreasonable. The requested reduction in buffers and setbacks is insufficient to hide the containers from the roadway. This will have a negative impact on the area and the surrounding residential communities. Furthermore, there will be no permanent taxable structure on the site, which has absolutely no tax advantage for the town of Smithtown. Moving Mobile Mini to this area, where it needs the many variances and special exception as a result of failing to comply with the local zoning codes and its current location, is a poor choice and irresponsible planning. Excuse me. In conclusion, while the Kings Park Civic Association acknowledges the many problems associated with zoning and lack of enforcement in our industrial area, we are open to working with the other civic groups and the town of Smithtown to find a reasonable solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Next, please.
Paul Graff, 48 Orchard Drive, Northport, New York.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I am here
Wait a
tonight.
minute. Just say your last name again and spell it for us.
Graff, G-R-A-F. I am here tonight in my capacity as president of the Fort Salonga Association to express our concerns regarding this application from DWC Management to seek a special exception and create a trucking station and numerous variances, the most egregious of which is to seek approval to store up to 600 containers on the site. We understand that outdoor storage of pods could be a benign use of this property. However, our concern is the scope of the project, the number of pods, the height of the storage requested, and the desire to compromise current zoning setbacks for the area. The precedent that this application creates will ripple throughout the industrial area. We encourage you to defer to our planning department to ensure that dangerous precedents are not created. The town board needs a comprehensive plan for this area. Piecemeal zoning by variance will not accomplish this goal. In its present form, this application should be denied. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Next, please. May I have your name, please?
Tom Unverzagt, Tom Unverzagt,
Spell your last name.
Unverzagt,
Okay, and your address, please.
31 Springbriar Lane, Kings Park.
Okay, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm a member of the Old Northport Road, Lawrence Road Task Force, and I urge this board to deny the request by the applicant due to the radical and excessive requests for special exceptions, interpretations of town codes, interpretations of the definitions, and variances. The property in question is zoned light industrial, and as such, there are 22 permitted uses for that zone for this classification. The intended use for this application is not affiliated with any of those 22 permitted uses. The applicant requests a trucking station special exception. The rationale is that the prospective tenant, Mobile Mini, who will be renting this space, will use it as a truck drop-off to pick up these massive steel shipping containers. The fact that the truck is used to transport these huge, obtrusive, offensive containers does not justify it as a trucking station exception. The applicant and his attorney recently presented their plan to a meeting at the Civic. At the meeting, the applicant admitted to his lack of compliance with the zoning regulations and that as they pertain to outdoor storage and other code violations in his other businesses that operate within Kings Park. The town didn't build this property. The property owners did it for themselves. It is imperative now more than ever that the town and its various governing boards make sure that each and every application before them are decided in the best interest of the town and more importantly, the residents and the other law-abiding legal businesses. As a member of the BZA, you have the responsibility to ensure that zoning laws are respected and abided by. You are entrusted with the authority to make sound decisions that will be proper, safe, and legal development to our community. The granting of special exceptions and variances should enhance and improve an area, not make it worse than it already is. With respect to the application, we feel that if approved, it'll have a negative impact on the area and a few areas. One, they did mention drainage. The surrounding lots already drain right onto Old Northport Road. This road just recently, earlier today and yesterday, was completely flooded out and impassable by regular residential cars. Trucks can pass because obviously they're higher, but the properties right now do drain into the road. There's no drainage there on the property on site. Noise, stacking of metal containers. There's already noise complaints in the area as it is from whatever's actually going on, so stacking noisy containers would clearly be a noise violation. It is undoubtedly a cause for increased dangerous, overweight, and overwidth truck traffic, putting the motoring public in unnecessary danger. It'll cause costly wear and tear on our roads, which they have already been used and abused, especially on Indian Head Road or Northport Road and Town Line Corridor. Street side blight and negative curb appeal in that area is in desperate need of improvements, not more eyesores. Rodent infestations. These containers would be an ideal nesting and breeding area for the environment for rats and other nuisances and other disease-spreading animals. There is absolutely no new taxes generated from this application. As the applicant will not be improving his land in any way, it is simply renting his land to another undesirable tenant. There is no plan to pave the area that the containers will be placed on, and no plan to build any permanent office space or any other structures to support a rental operation. Tax-paying residents should not bear the burden of this detrimental use of light industrial zone parcels. Shipping containers are steel boxes. They are not vehicles. They are structures and should not be regulated accordingly. Despite the fact for years that this area has been a poster child for reckless and environmentally dangerous land uses and development, the time has come for everyone to do their part and make sure that we improve this area and not make it worse than it is. Like Mr. Tramarco did state, there is outdoor storage in the area, but it is an all violation of the town of Smithtown. You are already aware that this shameful condition that exists in this part of town, the BZA and the other town officials need to ensure that any changes and exceptions to what is already in place must enhance and improve this area. We need to make improvements and progress in the area, not go backwards. Please deny this application on a complete lack of merit and nonconformance in even the most minor and necessary requirements. Just because something was done 100 years ago doesn't make it right today. We learn from mistakes, and this is clearly a mistake if this is allowed. To allow this, I can't even read my own handwriting. To allow this, and like all the other property owners are non-conforming as it is. Just to go ahead and change something should not be a gift for something that was already done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's let's go, please. Yep, good. Go ahead. Let me have your name first.
Hi, my name is Laura Schaefer. I live at 233 Old Comac Road in Kings Park, New York.
Okay. You want a spelling of her last name? Yes, we need your spelling of your last name.
Scheafer.
Okay. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Go ahead.
The question I had for you is, my concern is everything that's basically being done down there is being done illegally. So now we get these containers. What's going really in these containers? Are they really going to be taken away on trucks, or are they going to be rented out as storage to somebody? Is anything going inside the containers?
I don't believe there's anything, when it's stored on this piece of property, there's anything in the containers.
But
I-
how can we believe that? Everything else is...
Well, everyone is sworn in, and I have to take it that they're telling the truth.
Okay.
All right.
I would just like to comment on all the deaths that were, people that were killed on Old Northport Road due to 18-wheelers. I know an 18-year-old that has been permanently injured forever. My family alone, there's been 3 car accidents down by the end of Old Northport Road. I think that it's very unsafe, and to put more trucks on the road would just be totally ridiculous.
Okay.
Once again, it generates no tax revenue for our town. Put in an auto body shop, put in a plumbing supply, put in something that's going to generate some taxes, and then maybe that's something that the residents would be interested in agreeing with. To date, there is no site plan. If you go down there, as far as the noise, I hear noise. I called public safety yesterday. I live straight across Sunken Meadow Parkway from the Carlson property. They dig all night long. The truck goes beep, 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 boom. And violating, there's Article 373D. If the land wasn't touched, you're not supposed to touch it. Since I have complained December 21st, actually right here at this planning board, and was recommended to go to the town board, they have dug out 30, 40 more acres. And, you call public safety, and it's something that makes you go, because it's obvious that that's happening and nobody's doing anything about it. So as far as the noise goes, please, I beg you, no more noise.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else? Okay. Mr. Tramarko, there is one question. I'm going to ask you to be very quick. There was one question about the traffic pattern, where these trucks are going. If they're going...
The traffic pattern will be whatever the Board of Zoning Appeals suggests along with the Planning Board. They can be restricted, and we'll covenant that we'll take a certain route. With respect to, Mr. Sebo came up and he indicated to me, and I think I said it before, that as part of his proposed lease with the applicants is that a 3,500 square foot building be built on the property, and we think that'll generate $15,000 to $20,000 in tax revenues. With respect to rodents, he also indicated that in his 100+ locations, they don't have rodent problems, and the reason is they're steel containers and they don't store anything on site. And when a container comes back, they check it, and if it happens to be, if it happens to contain something, they throw it in the dumpster and get rid of it right away. But most of the storage is not food type of storage, which would attract rodents. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Ready? It's moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. I think we need to give a break. I know we have 7 more applicants. We're just going to take a little bit of a break and then come back. All right? Thank you.
Warm enough? Oh, boy. You know, the cops are all up the top of the list. Then it starts going down to doctors for the health department.
Oh, my goodness. He must be desperate. Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
you. Okay, Madam Chairman, the next case is 17,068, Nesconset Village Corp., 950 Johnson Avenue, Ronkonkoma, New York. The location is on the west side of Lawrence Drive, 463 feet north of Knollcrest Road, Nesconset. Property zoned R15. The request is a variance to increase the maximum paving in the front yard from 25 to 35%.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. Appearing on behalf of the applicant, Eugene L. Di Nicola, 200 Railroad Avenue, Sayville, New York. Let the record reflect that I have submitted the affidavit of posting, the affidavit of compliance with notification provisions, and the return receipts to Mr. Flynn.
This is the house right
As
now.
indicated in the call of the meeting, the applicant is requesting an increase in the maximum paved area in the front yard of a residence from 25% to 35%. The subject parcel contains a recently completed two-story single-family dwelling. The certificate of occupancy was issued December 18, 2013. Subject parcel is a lot on the map of the Pines at Nesconset. When the dwelling was completed, the driveway was installed with a widened portion adjacent to the garage area. I believe, Madam Chairwoman, photos were submitted with this application, so you'd be able to see the dwelling and the driveway. If not, I do have a photo for the board's assistance,
We have it,
if you will.
thank you so much.
The paved surface area totals 34.4%, or 1,460 square feet of the front yard, whereas 25%, or 1,060 square feet, is permitted. So the total square foot area installed in excess of the permitted area is 400 square feet, or 9.4%. The percentage of the additional impervious area of 400 square feet to the overall parcel is 0.021%. This is de minimis in relation to the parcel and will not generate any drainage issues or rainwater onto adjacent parcels or to the roadway. 3 neighbors have signed letters in support of this application. The neighbor immediately to the north, adjacent to the area where the driveway has been widened at 54 Lawrence Drive. The neighbor immediately in abutting on the south at 50 Lawrence Drive, and the neighbor across Lawrence Drive to the southeast at 37 Lawrence Drive. I'll submit these 3 letters to the board at this time.
Thank you.
This cul-de-sac subdivision has developed in a most attractive manner with aesthetically attractive dwellings. This board has granted several other area variances in the subdivision. If the application is approved, the variances will not produce an adverse impact or detriment to the neighborhood. It will not change the character of the neighborhood or create any undesirable change in the neighborhood. The requested variance is not substantial. Only this board can grant the relief
And it will
requested.
be well.
There'll be no adverse effect or impact upon the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood. And although self-created, the hardship is minimal and negligible in the instant case. There is no detriment to the health, safety, or welfare of the community. If this application is approved, I respectfully request that the board approve this request. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the board.
Planning, any questions?
Just a comment. Earlier this evening, on behalf of the Planning Department, I had recommended that the board grant the minimum relief necessary with respect to paving in the front yard. I would offer to say that this is a little bit different. The front yard is narrow in relation to the whole property, so that in essence, the request here is comparable to the amount of paving on a rectangular parcel.
Okay, thank you. Gentlemen?
No question.
Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Good evening.
All right. Anyone like to speak on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
It's really moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
Okay, the next case is 17,069, Vehicle Tracking Solutions, 10 East 5th Street, Deer Park, New York. The location is the south side of Veterans Memorial Highway, 513 feet east of Harned Road, Comac. Property zoned NB and R10. The request is a special exception to permit parking for business in a residence district existing, variance to reduce parking spaces from 124 to 58 spaces existing.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, my name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. You can see from this, see the rendering here, that'll be,
Benny, take the mic with you. Whatever.
you can see from this rendering, this will be the front of the building. Certain renovations to be done on the building. You can, if you remember this, the first use of the building was P.C. Richards, and they came in there, and it was a retail use, obviously, and they were there for some substantial amount of time. Then it became a physical therapy workout gym, and finally, the applicant here, my client, and what this company does is track vehicles. So, for example, one of his clients is the Suffolk County Water Authority, and they have these devices placed in every vehicle so that Suffolk County Water Authority knows where each vehicle is at any given time. And if vehicles come together, they are informed of that. It's really a very sophisticated system. And my client is expanding, and by virtue of his expansion, he needs another building. And this seemed to be a good situation for him. Well, you know, the corporation, but John Cunningham is the owner. He's here tonight with his wife. And one thing I'd like to hand out is, you see the diagram of the actual floor space that's used. And the reason why we did that is to explain as best we could what the real use of the property is vis-a-vis storage as opposed to actual office space. And we've done this even though planning and the ordinance requires us to really talk about this as being all office space, and that's why we have such a disparity in the office parking required for office as opposed to what we really need. And the existing 58 spaces is more than enough to accommodate my client's office staff. And the yellow, as you can, I'm sorry, the, let me put my glasses on here.
The yellow is the office space, right?
The yellow is yes, the yellow is the office space, and the red is the warehouse space. And there's a good reason for that. There really is a need in my client's operations to have substantial office space wherein he stores these devices and other electronic systems that track the devices that are placed in various vehicles throughout Suffolk County, Nassau County, and other places where my client has installed these devices. You had granted the variance in prior applications to extend parking into a residential zone. So we're not telling you or asking you for something that's new. The use is different. It's mostly office with some warehouse. However, it is really a business that Smithtown should welcome into its community. It's a very clean business with electronic devices that are stored and kept at the site. Now, all the installations are done. For example, if I have a fleet of trucks, Mr. Cunningham's people will come to my place and install them. He tells me it's really not a big deal to install, and the technicians are in and out in less than a half an hour. So we think it's a great use, and it's a use that has really no adverse effects on the community. Whether the request is substantial, well, on paper it looks substantial, but in reality it isn't. Remembering that there were two uses before, the first one a retail use, they never had problems with parking. I'm sure all of us have been to that P.C. Richards at least once during our lives in the town of Smithtown. Then it became a gym, physical therapy type place. Again, no problems with parking, and we don't see any problems with parking. I believe we have and will have about 35 employees. So we asked the board for its favorable consideration. Was the difficulty self-created? No, we haven't done the renovations yet. We do have permits to do some interior work, and I believe it's the cutout windows and stuff like that, which are presently with the building department. What we'd like to do, if this board is so inclined, is to do everything at once, and that, of course, depends on the board in granting this special exception variance. I have Mr. Cunningham here. I have the architect and the engineer. I don't know if you want to ask him any questions, but he's available.
Okay, I just have a clarification. In this advertising, it says variance to reduce parking spaces from 124 to 58 spaces. And then I have the PR in front of me, and it says request special exception, well, that's a variance to reduce required parking from 71 to 58. Well, I don't know what.
I would have to check to see which is the right answer.
I don't believe it's from 71.
You think it's 124?
Right, because even though we extended into residential, we needed that variance. I think if David, I don't know if he has the papers there, but didn't P.C. Richards, they were the initiator of the extension of the parking into the residential zone.
That's correct. I think what you have is P.C. Richards came in, I believe, in about the mid-90s to extend parking into the residence district. And at that time, the board granted the special exception. The board, the planning department, and it seems like nobody for the town knew that P.C. Richards had a basement. Maybe somebody knew, but I don't think the board knew, and I know the planning department didn't know. And that was not picked up until representatives of the applicant met with the planning department a month or two ago and said, well, gee, that needs to be included in the calculation.
Okay.
You know, it should have been included in the 90s, and it wasn't.
Okay. You have the PAR, don't you?
No.
Oh, can I ask, I apologize that he doesn't have it. and I don't actually have it right in front of me right now, but it recommends approval subject to 2 conditions.
Yeah, I'll read it. The plan shall be revised to reflect no office space in the cellar. The plan shall be revised to reflect that the cellar and the first floor warehouse and receiving areas to be used only as storage.
Okay, but before Mr. Tramarko goes into shock on this, we recommended that based on the information we had.
That's not, is that it?
But I think I can solve the problem by asking a couple of questions.
Okay.
I hope you can, David.
Yeah.
I did call this afternoon.
Okay.
and
I apologize. Blaze has been rather sick the last couple of days, and things aren't going according to Hoyle. But we recommended those conditions because the parking variance is so substantial. But Mr. Tramarko said that they would have about 35 employees. So it doesn't seem like the business would really need 120 parking stalls for 35 employees. But let me ask, do other people come to the property, like customers?
No, I asked Mr. Cunningham that question. The answer is no. They don't even come there for demonstrations. When Mr. Cunningham or one of his salesmen has a potential client, they go to the site.
Mhm.
They can install these devices in a matter of minutes, and however they work it out with their computers and so forth. So this isn't really a showroom type. It's
Right.
It's for their own employees to
Okay.
use.
Do they have, like, events, like conferences, seminars that might attract more people than would fit on the property, than cars would fit on the property?
They have events, but not at the property. They rent catering hall or restaurant. And,
Sure. Okay. What we would recommend is changing that, and if the board's inclined, well, obviously it's up to you anyway, but if the applicant is agreeable, it would be helpful, but that the variance be granted for this applicant, because
Only.
most businesses will need more parking than this based on the floor plan. Apparently, the nature of this particular business is such they don't require as much parking as normal. So that if this business moved, another office couldn't just move in and have triple the number of employees, and now there won't be enough parking. So anyway, so we would recommend approval for this applicant only.
and we have no objection to that. If my client sells the building, he'd be obligated to tell the buyers that the variance is granted to this use only.
Would you recommend a restricted covenant?
I would, just so a buyer would know.
I'm
We'd
sorry?
recommend a restrictive covenant, so that if somebody was searching, so they wouldn't be able to say to the
Right.
town, gee, I didn't know I couldn't do this.
Yeah. No, we've done a few of those. We could do
Okay.
it here.
Gentlemen, any other questions?
No question.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Regularly moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're gonna have
Just bear with me.
to, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, the next case is 12,892.2, Decanio Management Corp., 720 Smithtown Bypass, Suite 2A, Smithtown, New York. The location is the south side of Jericho Turnpike, 265 feet east of Ledgewood Drive, Smithtown. Thank you. Properties owned WSI.
Today.
The request is to modify a previously approved special exception for a counter-service restaurant to permit the construction in accordance with revised plans submitted with the application to the Board of Zoning Appeals, changing the tenant from a Wendy's counter service restaurant to a Burger King counter service restaurant. A variance to increase the number of ground signs from a maximum of 1 to 7, to reduce the minimum setback of 2 ground signs from the property line from 5 feet to 1 foot, to increase the number of wall signs from a maximum of 1 to 4, to permit 1 wall sign above another wall sign or awning sign, to increase the maximum projection of a wall sign from 1 foot to 2 foot, to permit 3 wall signs not facing a public street, and to increase the maximum height of 4 wall signs from 15 feet to 24 feet. And this is reopening a hearing. I believe it was on November 11th. Oh, no, it couldn't have been the 11th, but somewhere near the November 11th. And the application has been modified since then to include the sign variances.
Vincent DeCanio, 720 Smithtown Bypass, Smithtown, New York.
You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Yes, at the recommendation of Madam Chair and the board, at the November hearing, it was strongly recommended and urged that we do a major makeover, that it not be a traditional Burger King, and that the board didn't care where, in what towns that it was the traditional Burger King, that we go and look at making something that we'd be proud of in Smithtown. We went back to the board, quite a bit of help with that recommendation with Dave Flynn, and drastically changed the building where we're now using copper awnings, real copper awnings, cultured stone. We've eliminated any of the black stucco or unsightly red stucco, except for a red stripe at the top. It'll be true stucco and not drive it. And I believe that the building is now, will be actually, I hope, a good statement for even other Burger Kings in the future to take place. So I hope I satisfied the board as much as I could there.
I just want to say thank you. I appreciate it that you went back and was able to do this proposed building. Planning have any?
We think that this would be better, a lot better than the earlier design. I mean, most people don't get too excited over fast food architecture, but I think this is more in keeping with some of the nicer buildings on Jericho Turnpike.
I do too. Now let me ask you a question. Is there any change in some of these variances?
I believe the answer is yes, right? I mean, I believe Mr. DeCanio came in sometime around Christmas time with revising the application form. I mean, isn't that correct?
Yeah. Yes, we went to the building department for our sign permits, and as the David and the advertisement says, we're permitted 1 sign on the front of the building. We're asking for 1 on the east and 1 on the west side for normal visibility. I think it's reasonable. The reason why we need the height variance is only because of that existing grade. I think the board is aware, or I know planning is, and I know most, Madam Chair is, it was an pre-existing Wendy's who defaulted, and it's an eyesore rather, and it also was built somewhat lower than the adjacent restaurant, the Havana restaurant. Therefore, that's why the height requirements for the sign is there. It's just that the parking lot is lower because of, in 2003, I believe, the board imposed a maximum 6% grade coming into the site. So we've abided by that. We've kept the signs to a minimal, and the other sign variances that we're asking for are directional. But building has since said that even if they're directional without any logos that you apply for a variance. So I think the sign request is reasonable and was added on.
Again, I thank you very much for doing this. Member, do you have anything?
Well, I'd like to thank you also. I know we were kind of tough on you last time. I think you did a nice job.
I think really I appreciate your toughness because I went back to the drawing boards and I always want to do something nice in the community. I appreciate your input and your help, and you guided me along in the right direction, so thank you.
Okay. Anything else, gentlemen? Thanks so much.
Could I add something? I think it's important to put on the record. It looks like there are a lot of sign variances. But when you look at it, one is just a clearance height. One says enter, one says exit, one says do not enter. One is a menu board, and one's a pre-menu board. So if you look at the public notice, it's really, if you look at it superficially, it's misleading. It sounds like it's sign pollution, when it seems that the ordinance actually exempts the caution-type signs from being counted as signs. But I guess building is being conservative on it and adding them to the equation. So I just, some people will come to you later and say you approved, a large number of variances for Burger King, and they want a large number of variances, but they're not for the do not enter signs. They're for larger
Advertising.
advertising, yes.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay,
again.
thank you so much. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Ready to move the second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Keeping this.
Okay, the next cases are ones that were adjourned from earlier hearings. The first one I have it worded two ways. I'm going to read it from the notice. It's case number 17,019. It's 60 Main Street LLC, 60 Main Street, Kings Park, New York. Location, southwest corner of Main Street and Renwick Avenue, Kings Park. Property zoned CB. The request, variance to reduce minimum front yard setback from 10 feet to 0 feet for a canopy. Reduce minimum parking setback from lot line from 6 feet to 1 foot. Reduce buffer setback from adjoining a residence district from 50 to 20 feet for a canopy. Reduce required 10-foot wide protective planting strip to 7 feet. Permit a structure to be erected over a height above curb level in excess of 2 feet in required corner clearance for 22-foot building. Reduce minimum truck loading spaces from 1 to 0. Reduce minimum parking spaces from 18 to 15. Increase maximum number of ground signs from 1 to 3. Increase the maximum height of a wall sign from 15 feet to 20 feet.
Madam Chair, I need to recuse myself.
Okay. Thank you.
Guy W. Germano, Germano and Cahill, PC, 250 Veterans Memorial Highway, Holbrook, New York, for the applicant. As this is a continuation of the prior hearing,
Use the mic.
As this is a continuation of the prior hearing, we put in all of our primary testimony at the first hearing. Since then, our engineers have been working diligently with the planning department and have proposed and submitted to the planning department a revised site plan, which I believe has answered many of the questions and suggestions that were brought up at the last meeting. I have a handout.
Yeah, I don't think we need this.
With the new
I don't
site
think.
plan on it.
Good.
And I just turned to the new site plan page, so you don't have
Why don't you give them to me and I'll pass them so you can get back. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so as a result of the conversations we had at the last hearing, a number of changes have been made, and these changes result in changes to the application. And I'm going to quickly go through them. I have here a larger version of the revised site plan, and the old site plan is down here at my feet.
Okay.
You also have a copy of the old one there if you want to refer to it. The bank has been repositioned. Originally, it was right on the corner, as you can see here. The bank has been repositioned. It's been moved back, and it's been moved quite a distance from the corner, and now it hits the site. The site triangle hits about 4 feet of the building, right on the very tip of it. So we've reduced the impact to the site triangle from Renwick and Main Street by a tremendous percentage. And we heard testimony from our engineer at the prior hearing that because of the position of the road and the stop signs, the site triangle actually, when the building was in the corner, was not an impediment to seeing traffic coming down the street. Well, that has improved dramatically. As a result of moving the building back, in order to get the parking in, there was a bypass lane here. That bypass lane has been removed. The application previously called for a reduction of 3 feet in the buffer zone here between the residence district. That is no longer required, as this distance is now 10 feet. Okay. In this same location, the canopy has been moved back 15 feet from Renwick. So it's back to it's 25 feet, set back 25 feet from the property line, and further from Renwick, and it's just about even now with the front setback of the residential building here. On the northwest side of the building, we had asked for a 0 lot line variance for the parking. We now have the required 6 feet. So that's been removed. The canopy is 5 feet closer to the lot line than it was as a result of the repositioning of the drive-throughs. We asked for a variance for no truck loading. That's the same. This could be used for truck loading here if we needed it. And that was, I think, gone over with planning. You can see one of the questions was how close we can get parking to the building and the handicap parking. And you can see that the handicap parking now is right opposite the door, the rear door of the building. So that works very well. There's, again, by keeping the drive-through over here, there's no impact for people who are parking here. They don't have to go through and cross in front of a drive-through lane. So that really does make for better circulation in the parking lot. We requested a parking variance of 3 for 3 vehicles, and that's the same. We're maintaining the same 15 parking places that we had originally. So it's the same request for a 3 vehicle variance for parking. We've asked for 3 ground signs, and we're still asking for them. One here is actual identification sign. The other 2 signs, just as heard, but the other signs are really directional signs for the parking lot. And we've asked for an increase in the height of one of the wall signs on the bank. It's actually the shield, to take it up to the top of the tower. And actually, there's a rendering of that.
I see.
Last page?
Yeah, I see it.
You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what we'd like to do is move that. The canopy, as we indicated before, is going to be all brick, same as the building. All right. And I think that's a pretty good summary. And the landscaping all around it, we'll do whatever planning wants on that. But that's pretty much a roundup of what we've done and how we've improved the site plan, improved the circulation, improved the access, and we've still kept the building, you know, in the streetscape and the downtown area. So I think it was a good effort.
Okay.
Any
Thank you.
questions? And we have, our experts are here, our real estate expert and our traffic expert, if you have any questions, and also the engineer is here.
Yeah, we have everything on the record from the previous hearing.
Yes.
Planning, is there anything?
Yes, please. Two comments. One is, from a normal planning standpoint, it would be better if the building were back a little bit more from the street, but we recommend approval of this because, I think basically because it's so much better than what they first came in with, and to set it back more would require them to change the shape of the building, and they said that TD Bank really doesn't want to do that. So in consideration of all of the other changes, we would recommend approval of the variances overall.
Okay.
The second aspect has to do with the ground sign, and we have two concerns, one for and one against. The one against is that since this building is closer to the street than almost anybody, if they put up a ground sign, then other people will want them. But on the other hand, because the applicant worked with the planning department and tilted the building, eastbound traffic wouldn't be able to see the sign on the front of the building anymore. So there is a need in this situation for a ground sign. I think the board and certainly the staff wants this business to succeed, and to succeed they need identification. The only thing that we would say is that I think that the height and area of the sign should be in keeping with the scale of the district. I don't have an answer as to what that is. It shouldn't be so small that it's not successful in helping TD Bank. Yet on the other hand, this isn't Jericho Turnpike, where the normal 32 square foot sign 15 feet high would be permitted. I don't have the answer, but I just think the board should grant relief.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much relief is the fair balance between keeping the streetscape nice and certainly making TD Bank successful.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions, gentlemen?
No question.
Again, I would like to thank you that you went back to take all our suggestions. I appreciate it. All right. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Okay. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
He may wish to reply to my comments.
Oh, did you want to reply? I'm sorry.
I thought Mr. Germano might want to.
Yeah, I mean, you want to know,
I can
identify yourself.
yeah, absolutely. Dale Koch from Bowler Engineering. We're the civil engineers on the project.
I need your name and your
Yep.
address, and it has to be
Absolutely.
sworn in.
It's Dale Koch from Bowler Engineering, 2929 Expressway Drive North, Hauppauge, New York, 11749.
All right, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. We have visited the site a few times, and right now we are requesting that we have obtained approval for the 15-foot sign. We've already gone back to TD Bank and spoken to them about the possibilities of keeping the 32 square foot, however, lowering it down to an 8-foot high monument sign with, a decorative brick base to match the building, which we feel would fit into the character of the community a little bit better and match the building itself. So.
I'm not sure. It's something, if I were on the board, I would want to wrestle with that a little bit, because, it does the town no good to have a building that doesn't do well.
Absolutely, yeah, and there is no signage proposed on the easterly elevation, which eastbound traffic would see. The westerly elevation that eastbound traffic would see.
Right.
So we would need some type of identification for people to be able to, safely slow down going down 25A and turn into Renwick Avenue and access the building parking lot. So we do request that.
Do you have a rendering of the sign that monument sign that you want?
I have a black and white, and it doesn't have the same brick base that I can pass to the board.
Yeah, all right, let me just tell you that there's no decision tonight, because there's no secret.
Mm-hmm. We understand.
You know that. So just do me a favor, if you could,
Absolutely.
just bring to the planning department a rendering of the sign.
Or email if you have a
Or
PDF.
email.
Yeah, we can, absolutely. We'll coordinate with the planning department and work something out.
Good.
Absolutely.
Very
Thank you.
good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, good. All right, again, I'll ask now, is there anyone else that wants to be heard? Okay. I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
It's rarely moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Oh,
Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to read the next two cases together because they're kind of like twins.
yeah, they are.
Okay, thank you. The first one is case 17,040, 330 Motor Parkway Partners, LLC, CO Capstone Realty Group. Thank you. 1 Engel Street, Suite 200, Englewood, New Jersey. The location is the northwest corner of Motor Parkway and Marcus Boulevard, Hauppauge. The property is zoned LI. Request variance to increase the maximum area of a ground sign from 32 to 78 square feet, to increase the maximum number of ground signs from 1 to 2. The second case is 17,041. It's also 350 Motor Parkway Partners, LLC, care of Capstone Realty Group. 1 Engel Street, Suite 200, Englewood, New Jersey. The location is the northeast corner of Motor Parkway and Marcus Boulevard, Hauppauge. The property is also zoned LI. This one has 1 variance. It's to increase the maximum area of a ground sign from 32 to 78 square feet.
May I have your name and address first?
Douglas Hines, Design Development Group, Skylark Lane, Stony Brook.
Okay, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, I've submitted to the staff and council powers of attorney running from each of the owners of these 2 buildings. I'm not sure if I heard Mr. Flynn correctly. The building on the northeast corner is known as 350 Motor Parkway, Hauppauge, and the ownership name mirrors that address. The building on the northwest corner of Motor and Marcus is 330 Motor Parkway, and that ownership name reflects that address. And I believe the notices were prepared that way. Since taking title to these buildings in late 2012, the new owners have engaged in a voluntary and a cooperative effort with the town to renovate and upgrade these 1960s era buildings.
Can I stop you for a second, please? Could someone bring Mr. Tansey in?
Oh, okay.
I just realized that.
Yeah, if he's still here.
Or he went out for coffee. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right.
Good thing I looked over. Huh?
One more after these.
Can we probably tell him?
Thank God.
Yeah, I'll just pass it out. Yeah.
Doug?
Just pass.
Doug, did you give us a posting affidavit? Yeah, on both. Are they attached to the powers of attorney? Oh, okay. Okay, thanks.
Oh, Tony.
Okay, thank you.
Were you napping? I'm sorry.
That's
You want to
quite
start again?
New ownership took over in late 2012. The owners have been engaged in a good effort with the town to renovate these 1960s era buildings, including significant fire safety upgrades that are not actually required by code but are nonetheless important and desirable. We've now turned our attention to the exterior ground signage at these 2 sites, and tonight request variance relief as to the size of the signs proposed for each location, as well as permission to maintain a second ground sign at number 330, which is the western, more western building of the two. I've handed up a composite survey of the two office building properties. Clients also own the fast food restaurant to the east, but that is not part of this hearing. You'll notice on the 330 building to the left on the side of the survey, we've crossed in red ink, crossed out two signs that are to be removed from that property. There's a sign in the lower left-hand corner for the First National Bank tenant, which has been there since the 80s with a permit, and it's our request that we be permitted to keep that sign in place while adding a new sign identifying the building and the prime tenants in the center of the lawn. And with respect to the 350 property, an identical sign for the 350 building and the prime tenants, and one sign to be removed at the southwest corner of that property. The three signs to be removed are there, as far as we can tell, without benefit of permits. So clearly the town could have required them to be removed, but the owner wants to clean up the appearance, and therefore they've made the decision. 330 is a large property, 4.5 acres, 2 road frontages. 350 is 3.4 acres, also with 2 road frontages. Each site features approximately 57,000 square feet of office space. I would like to hand up for the board's consideration a rendering of the proposed ground signs on the Motor Parkway frontages, and there's also an aerial photograph, although I'm sure the board's familiar with the area. The first photograph is taken from the east looking west along Motor Parkway. It features the 350 building, and it shows on the slight rise in the land there where we propose to locate the building identification and the 3 prime tenants. The second picture is looking west to east from the 330 building back. The First National sign, Bank of Long Island sign is there. That's the one proposed to remain. And the new proposed sign is back in the center of the lawn. In the distance to the right is a sign that's to be removed. These signs are 25 feet back from the property line, 5 feet further than would be permitted, but it seemed to be the appropriate location for them. You'll notice in these pictures, and in the aerial photograph particularly, that the corners of these two sites, the southwest corner of the easterly site and the southeast corner of the westerly site, are heavily treed, a lot of foliage. It creates some difficulty in placing a sign that is readily capable of being recognized from the fast-moving traffic on Motor Parkway, which is 2 lanes in each direction at that location and a turning lane. And the topography also suggested that we move them back and therefore make them slightly larger. And so we're requesting 78 square feet, which includes the size of the stanchions upon which the sign stands, in lieu of the 32-foot limitation. And with respect to the 330 property, the second sign. We do not believe in this wide open area, the size of the property, the size of the buildings, that there's an adverse impact to the neighborhood. We would respectfully submit that the size request is considerable. Whether it verges to substantial, we leave to the sound discretion of this board as to whether to conclude that a variance is warranted. No adverse environmental impact, no self-created hardship, and based on the topography and the trees and the sight lines in the area, no really good alternate location. That is our respectful request, and I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Planning?
No comments, thank you.
Gentlemen? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Regularly moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
The next case and the last case is 17,042, Ronaldo and Alana Latour, 232 Indian Head Road, Kings Park. Location, the west side of Indian Head Road, 767 feet south of Ellen Place, Kings Park. Property zoned LI District. Variance to reduce minimum side yard setback from 20 to 8 feet and total side yards from 40 to 27 feet for existing pool, shed, and deck. to permit environmentally sensitive lands, that is slopes in excess of 15%, to be altered, reduce setback between structures and environmentally sensitive land from 10 feet to 0 feet, reduce minimum front yard landscaped area from 80% to 30%, reduce required buffer zone adjacent to a residence district from 100 feet to 3 feet, waive installation of a 6-foot-high fence and 10-foot wide planting strip adjacent to a residence district, reduce parking setback from a residence district from 100 feet to 0 feet, reduce parking setback from front lot line from 50 feet to 0 feet, reduce parking setback from side lot line from 6 feet to 0 feet, increase accessory structure height for existing lamp posts in front yard from 4 feet to 7 feet, reduce minimum distance from any lot line from 10 feet to 0 feet for lamp posts.
May I have your name, please?
Ilana Mandel,
And your address, please?
232 Indian Head Road, Kings Park, New York, 11754.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Would you like this gentleman to speak for you?
Yes.
Okay, good night.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. Douglas Hines, 23 Skylark Lane, Stony Brook, Design Development Group for the applicant.
Okay, I swore you in before. Thank you.
It was my fond hope that I'd be able to conclude this hearing in less time than it took Mr. Flynn to read the notice, and truthfully, it is a very simple application with very few substantial variances or no substantial variances being requested. It's important to remember that first and foremost, this property has been developed as a residence. In 2009, this board granted a certificate of existing use for a residence. The anomaly is that it's zoned light industrial, and therefore a number of these waiver requests are more technical in nature than they are substantive, but I'd like to go through them. Initially, we're talking about side yard setbacks for a pool, a shed, and a deck. The closest of those structures is the shed at 8 feet. The deck at 8.6 follows, and the pool is 19 feet away, nearly the required 20 feet. In terms of the environmentally sensitive land issues, it turns out that we just make the 15% mark. There was some discussion at the planning department whether we were environmentally sensitive or not, but we accept the judgment that we are and request that those retaining walls essentially and some of the other improvements, the pool and the deck, be allowed to stay on that land. It is sloped to a point where the retaining walls were necessary to make reasonable use of the property. As to the technical requirements, the buffer zone relaxations, the fence and planting strips, all of the things you would customarily have in an industrial development next to residential, we would respectfully submit that those waivers should be readily granted. And in partial support of that proposition, we would hand up to the board a copy of a letter from the town attorney dated January 25th, 2013, a copy of which was given to the building department, which addressed a question that the planning department and I had discussed, whether this property being industrially zoned needed a site plan application for these residential improvements to be approved. And it was the town attorney's opinion that it was essentially a residential property and should be deemed residential for purposes of whether a site plan should be required, and one was not. And I'll hand that up to the board. Finally, as to the accessory structure height in the front yard, I'd like to hand up a series of photographs. The more important ones are the very first one, which is an aerial photograph of the property, and then the last couple of pictures, which are of those lamp posts in the front property.
Well, look at the lamp here.
The aerial photograph tells an awful potent story. This is an island of land surrounded by forest on 3 sides, and across Indian Head Road, which at that point expands into 2 lanes in each direction with a turning lane and is a real speedway, is also state-owned forest land. We are a unique piece of property in this location. We are surrounded on 3 sides by the condominiums to our rear, And those buffer areas on the north and the south side of our property, neighboring our property, are part of the approval of the condominium and its site plan. So we are virtually have no visible neighbors. As a result, there's little impact on the community, certainly no substantial impact with the pool, the deck, the shed, the retaining walls. With respect to the gate posts in the front, you'll see from the pictures at the end of the package, they're rather substantial and beautiful structures. They're well hidden in each case by foliage, and it would be our proposal to put a 4-foot fence in that area. We can't go any higher than that, we realize that. But it would help to enclose the property and protect the Latores and their pets. They're new owners of this property. We're trying to clean up a situation that was created by the prior owner, who passed away in 2012. And it is our respectful request that despite the number of variances, there's really nothing terribly substantial here, and we would respectfully request approval.
Thank you. Planning?
Because of the circumstances of the property, planning recommends approval of virtually all of the requests. The only thing that we're not in support of is the full variance to reduce the landscaping in the front yard. I think the property is a little bit conspicuous and a little bit maybe not the nicest entrance effect because of the lack of landscaping. Certainly we don't recommend denying it, but maybe there's a little bit more room to put a little landscaping in. I mean, if you go further up the road and you look at the other houses on Indian Head Road on both sides, they all have a lot more landscaping, and I think the first one is approximately 150 feet to the north. So that's just our recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, that is certainly a reasonable request that planning has made. There is a rather extensive paved area and gravel area, and we've been wrestling with the new owners to try to come up with a solution to the problem that they have, which is maneuvering cars in and out of this location. The speed limit there is posted at 30, but it is routinely 60 miles an hour along there. You take your life in your hands when you step out onto the property. I know I did when I photographed the posting signs. But clearly there is a compromise there that would enable us to dispense with some of that asphalt paving, some of the gravel area, and put some additional landscaping in.
A suggestion is maybe even just a hedge so the public doesn't know that it's all paved.
I think
Something like that.
I think that we could certainly adopt that recommendation. Thank you.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second?
Regularly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our hearings for tonight. Thank you so much.